All right,
He
cool.
was unavailable. Hold on a second. Got an error message. Make sure that everything's okay. Refreshing. Goes. Cool. Okay, so now copy URL. I'm gonna ping everybody like crazy tonight. It's cool. Everyone. So now publish. Publish. Confirm. All right.
All right, in that case, let's show them our pretty faces. Da-da-da.
Hello, Amanda.
There
Thomas.
we go. Aha. We can do this. Hey, Amanda. Hey, Thomas, Pat, Captain Mymorph, Moose. Good to see you all.
Yes.
Welcome to a very freeform version of LMA.
Exactly. We're working kind of more flexibly tonight here on Loremaster's Arcanum.
I'm not going to say this reminds me of some of my D&D sessions running games, but kind of reminds me of some of my D&D sessions running games.
It's all about improv on the D&D channel. So
Uh,
let's go going with it. All
oh
right,
boy.
everyone.
So, question, chat. What would you like to talk about? And while you're figuring that out, Evelyn, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, so yeah, it's been good. Weather's not as hot right now, which is nice. It's been really that awesome one shot Terry ran. It was awesome.
That
It was
was that
super
was a
fun.
lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm well, yeah. Did has anything been mentioned to you, Evelyn, about the what coming on as far as Mondays? Is
Oh yes. Yes,
did
we're
he,
excited about that.
did he tell you the latest?
No, I don't think he did.
I'm going to be joining you.
Yay! That's so exciting.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes!
Yes, Thomas.
Thomas! Yes, I know, right? It's so exciting. Hi Jay.
Hey,
Welcome.
Jay. So yeah, that's going to be. I sent Terry a note earlier to let him know. So yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm excited. I was like, I need to play. I need to play in a game with where I can role play and it's more than a one shot.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I'm super excited about that.
With like, I'm sitting there waiting for all those part twos that never come.
I know, because life is busy.
uh,
Oh, see, I know about another PC, Thomas.
hmm
I
hmm
know, I know which one I think that you're hinting at. Hee
Yeah,
hee.
I'm gonna need to. I have an idea for my PC. I'm going to need to talk to Terry to work on some background stuff for him. Um,
Hello.
Greetings, Hawkeye, and welcome. So yeah, we this is kind of well out of left field. This was not supposed to be the session tonight. However, very good to see you. Um, so we kind of decided that well, we wanted to have a session anyway. But we kind of want to throw it open to the chat to see what would you like to talk about. Anything TTRPG related? Go or
Oh, he's got so Thomas is throwing out a couple ideas right there. Acting versus role playing gaming, decisions versus gaming, character decisions versus gaming decisions. Those are some good ones.
So when you say character decisions versus gaming decisions, are you talking about what's the right thing to do, or or what would be the correct thing to do, or what would be the character-driven thing to do? Is that where we're going with
It
this?
seems kind of like in character decisions versus meta choices, like as a player.
Mm-hmm.
It's what my PC would do versus what's actually fun. Yeah.
Wait. So why wouldn't your PC do what's fun? I mean, unless you're playing a PC who's absolutely anti-fun, well, then but that's a different kind of fun.
Anti-fun. Exactly.
Uh,
Okay, the delay is throwing me off. What is the exactly, Thomas? To which point?
you need to specify, sir.
To Robert.
Okay. Goblin hair. Oh man. Yeah, that kind of goes back to an early Friday Night Crusades thing where things just did not two words I never thought I would see together, and then somehow it also well kind of sort of became present in a meme that I found where it wasn't a goblin harem though, it was a goblin brothel, and I'm not entirely sure which is more disturbing. Poor clerics, no fun. Hey, clerics can have fun.
Oh yeah, they can.
Listen, cleric gets to decide if you want to play the healbot cleric, you get to decide who lives and who dies, and that's a certain kind of fun.
The power. Here's the
Uh,
thing: sometimes a character might make a stupid decision, but within the realization of a game with friends, it isn't as fun. Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's very often reasons for where your character wouldn't necessarily stay in the party for personal reasons, yet they do because game reasons.
that to me that kind of feels like the kind of thing where you need to have a discussion with the DM and figure out well should the character leave the party and should I get ready to run a new one.
Right. Yeah.
Huh.
Have you guys ever had a situation like that? What is this? Played a Dragonborn Paladin, hated it, was not enjoying playing that character at all. Worked with the DM to figure out how I could swap to a new character. I've never had a situation where I didn't in well, I can't say that I haven't had a character that I've hated playing. I've had ones that I haven't been as excited to play before, I suppose.
All right, I turned up the audio capture for you a
Okay.
bit. See if that sounds any better.
Hopefully. I checked my mic settings, so hopefully they're
Yeah, I
loud
mean, you
enough.
sound fine to me, so I'm thinking it may be on my end with the
Gotcha.
audio capture. So have I ever had a situation like that? Actually, I kind of had a problem. Yeah, no, I did end up having a problem. It ended up becoming, unfortunately, it ended up becoming a bad situation because I wasn't entirely sure I liked the character, and
Mm-hmm.
then I had issues. The DM and I we kind of misfired on the implications of my character's story,
Gotcha.
and it kind of got to this thing where I ended up in a place where I just wasn't enjoying the character at all, and unfortunately, I wasn't entirely thrilled about starting over at that point, so I ended up leaving the game.
Mm-hmm.
It, but yeah, I mean, if a player was, the player's got to enjoy the character. If the player's
Yeah.
not enjoying the character, the DM's got to be able to make some accommodation. It's from a DM standpoint. I mean, I guess it depends on how much, how painful it is. Depends on how far in advance you've worked on the storyline for the character.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it compared to what the player is going through, it's still going to be. I think it's still not a big deal to switch. Now, here's the fun part as a DM. What you can do with that, if you end up say, if you're on the DM side of this, the
Mm-hmm.
question I want to know is, how do you want your character to leave?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I mean, especially if you realize pretty quickly on that you don't enjoy playing that character, I imagine like that's going to be easier to work out with the DM than like you've made it halfway through the narrative and suddenly you're like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I really don't like playing this character. Because I mean, when you're still early days of the story, I imagine that's easier to figure out. But divine smite. But no, I mean, and like just I think whatever makes sense as far as like getting that character out is easy enough to would be easy enough to work with your DM on, as long
Hmm.
as you're not doing something completely ridiculous and like that story breaking to take them out of the story. I think that makes sense. Sometimes it's really fun to just like have characters go down in a blaze of glory,
Hmm. Yeah, Blaze of Glory, or they become, their death becomes the plot twist,
Mm-hmm.
or the turning point, or something. It's you don't get to do that often. Now the problem that you have with that at times is, do you let the other do the other players need to be in on that?
Right.
Because sometimes it'll be like, wait, you killed the character off and we couldn't do anything about it. Oops.
Yeah, that makes it a little trickier for sure, especially if anybody was like invested in that in particular. It's like, oh, well, I guess they're dead now. Okay.
And I mean, sometimes you just, the character, you can make the choice to have the character leave and, give the opportunity to tie up some things.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
all right. So more questions.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And I can
Rauschats.
say and I can say in a similar vein too, I've had not necessarily a character I didn't like playing, but a campaign I did not enjoy playing in. Um and that thankfully kind of ended on its own due to some stuff. But it was just a bit of a painful trek there for a minute. So
I'm in the middle of the second campaign that the first one we got out of. Wasn't enjoying the campaign. I'll be honest with you. I still like 5e. I do not like the 5e published adventures.
yeah.
I haven't tried Curse of Strahd, and even though I own it, probably the main reason I haven't tried it is because of the fact that I have the original Ravenloft, and it's like, I it's cool to have a 5e version of it, and someday I'll run it for people who've never done it. But it's like I've run the original Ravenloft a couple of times, so it's not like new to me.
Right.
But some of them, the two that I've been through as a player, just I not a fan at all.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, we kind of got put out of our misery. For the wrong reason, because we had a problematic player who just
Oof.
made a lot of people uncomfortable, and we just kind of split.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, it took a little longer to figure out and then there was just parts of it where it was like, this just isn't fun. It's
Right.
not. You're kind of going from A to B, and I don't know. It just didn't feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the party at this point, we're hanging on until we get to the next step, because we've got a pretty big party. So they're going to continue it without me and without
Mm-hmm.
one other person who's also not happy. But the party is currently split. We're doing two parts of the adventure at the same time, and as soon as our part's done, we'll be done.
Right.
Oh, let's see. We've got more questions. Thomas, as a DM, how do you deal with campaign fun suck? We talked about players' perspective. Okay. When you say fun suck, or I mean, because we just kind of went through one of the problems when you're just not enjoying the story or whatever the case may be. Anything in particular, Thomas?
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's different aspects of it from the DM's perspective too. I mean, because they can have a not fun. Do you shift it or in the campaign? It kind of depends on who you're playing with. I feel like is a lot of it. If you feel like it can be shifted within the group that you're add a bard, kill the bard. But I mean, if it's a group of people that you normally enjoy playing with and it's just something about that campaign is just not clicking, you could always shift into something different potentially. If it's just not fun at all and these are, the players aren't enjoying themselves, maybe personalities don't match or whatever, then you can end it. I mean, it just kind of depends. There's a lot of factors that go into that, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I got used to because of the fact that I didn't have regular players
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid was, every time we found a new player, we'd start something new. So the
Mm-hmm.
idea of ending a campaign and starting something else with new characters was never really a big deal.
That was just kind of the norm.
Yeah, I mean, so it didn't. If we had to do it, it didn't bother me. Sometimes it might bother my players more than it did me. But I was like, I can go with this, and usually people were pretty okay with it. I I didn't have a regular set of players for anything up until, well, I mean, I had two friends that I played with in high school, but we were barely, we were playing maybe once every couple of months. One of us, we'd stay over at a friend's house, one of the guys' houses for the weekend, and we'd like play through the weekend. But
Yeah.
Vivi mentioned, actually, this kind of goes into this kind of feeds into this. Had asked, what's your favorite memory about your early experiences with D&D? So I mean, it's early relative to now because it's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird thinking that it's early because it was kind of far into my playing. But when I got to college, I ended up joining a fraternity, and most of my pledge class, about three quarters of my pledge class, played D&D.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't a huge pledge class, but there was, I found a bunch of people who were interested in playing D&D, even some of who had never played before. And I went from, maybe playing with two to three people who were, and sometimes it was like two people controlling three characters each. It was
Right.
rarely one person controlling one character. Suddenly I had anywhere from 6 to 10 people regularly playing D&D. So, I had an honest to goodness campaign where we had characters that leveled from 1 to, I think, and this was first edition AD&D. I think I think they hit level 12 or 13 by the time we were done.
Wow.
And we had gone through the gamut. We had gone through, actually, I think we had actually survived the transition to second edition. I think we
Whoa.
started in first. I think we converted to second.
Mm-hmm.
And, by the time we'd done second edition, we had gone from Greyhawk to the Ravenloft Domains of Dread to Spelljammer and back again.
Nice. Traveling all over the multiverse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I had ever been a Planescape person, they would have gone there too. But it was, I still remember one of my favorite moments now that I think about it was the original Ravenloft. I scared the hell out of my players. They were terror. I mean, I had a group of like 7 players who were probably over leveled for the place, and they were all convinced they were all going to die.
Yeah.
The words "miss rising" still
Uh-huh.
get some of them. They suddenly, I'm watching. We're playing today. If I mention the word "miss," they start to tremble a little because they know that it's always a possibility with me.
Mm-hmm. Uh, well, in answer to Vivi's question, for me, I think like my most early D&D experience, I started playing with a group of friends. I've talked about this a little bit, right out of high school. And it was perfect because when we started was at the beginning of summertime, basically. So, it was be Saturday. We'd go over to our DM's house and like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd order pizza and other snacks, and we'd bring like whatever we wanted over. I usually brought a really giant bag of peanut butter M&Ms because they're my favorite, and then we would just sit and play D&D for like usually went home around 2 in the morning probably.
Nice.
So like good 12-hour session just snacking and playing D&D around the table. It was super fun, and I think that's like that alone is like some of my best memories of D&D, even though like that campaign didn't last for like forever. It's still like it's enough of like an impactful time in my life that I came back to D&D later once I found out that the little group we put together with they are the best but when John was putting the group together for our Middle Earth campaign that we were doing, when we found out about that, I was like, D&D, yes, let's do it. So because I hadn't played in years up to that point, and I had been really wanting to do it again because I had had such a good experience, even though my very first character died immediately. And funny thing is, I didn't have any of my own dice when I played initially. I am the dice hoarder now. Like I am the ultimate dice goblin now. But like when I first played, I had to borrow dice from the DM and some of the other players so that I had dice to actually roll when we were playing. So yeah.
Oh, I have my pouch like over on the other table with all the what remains of my original dice. It's basically just one of the just regular dice pouches, and I don't think there's definitely not a complete set in the entire thing. If I have more than three of them of the same color and type, that was a miracle because it was we'd go, they'd have like a container of dice and it was like maybe one die for a 20 a nickel or a quarter or whatever it was, and just find a couple whatever you needed at the time and just kept picking up more.
Mm-hmm.
Now for a while now I used to have hundreds of dice. Now I have one set of D&D dice and three sets of D10s. I have dice. I'm not quite a oh I don't know. I guess it depends on where you draw the line between Dice Goblin and Dice Dragon.
All of my dice still fit in one dice bag. Therefore, I am a goblin. Dragon extends past that. Now it is a very big dice bag, but they all fit in one.
Yeah, no. I mean, I bought one thing that has a just a general set that I could use for like if people needed dice, and that alone has 126 dice. So I think it's 16 different colors.
Nice. That's awesome. Good solid lot of dice.
You need thousands of dice so you can smash them in front of the others. So
I mean,
you gotta make sure. Yeah, but motorboat, or mellow you gotta make sure that if you're gonna do that, make sure that you bring the hammer down centered on the die, because otherwise that thing's going to take off.
rocket in one direction or the other. See, that's why I have a dice jail. So the one that goes into the jail can be the example for all the others. They have to learn. It's important.
I had somebody tell me, it's like, well, if your dice jail isn't working, make a dice spa. Maybe they respond to better to positive.
Oh no, Thomas! I'm so sorry that your cats broke your dice jail. It was a very nice dice jail too. What is the best way to cleanse the dice of bad juju? I mean, a proper way. I mean, you know my methods of getting my dice to roll like they're supposed to. I put them on the numbers that I desire for them to roll so they can remember that that's what they're supposed to do. But as far as cleansing them go, just make sure that they all know that they're lovely and special.
TDK, total dice kill. That'll teach them.
Indeed.
Oh, all right. More questions. Keep them coming.
Because we could talk about dice for a while. A sacrifice must be made.
Indeed.
But yes.
Douse the dice in Dr. Pepper. I think that only works if you're playing Castles and Crusades, Steve. Or some other Troll Lord Games game.
I was going to say I would have to start keeping Dr. Pepper around if that's the way that works.
I agree.
Throw them across the room.
If it's buying new dice so they have to compete for favoritism, I'd be rolling 20s all day long.
When we upgrade to D&D 0.375 Pathfinder 2, Well, actually, we occasionally have one shots on here for Pathfinder 2e because we, one of our players, from Tuesday night, DMs Pathfinder 2e, and it's really fun. Our primary system that we use is 3.5 D&D 3.5e slash Pathfinder 1, since it's basically kind of the same. We just do the open games license version. But yeah, so it's usually basically Pathfinder 1. Uh, okay. Oh, Vivi put, what is your favorite place to pull inspiration when creating worlds for your players?
I'm gonna let you take this one first because I have to think about that for a while, a bit, because it's been a minute since I've actually created a world for my players as opposed to using a published one.
Gotcha. Well, I have been working on world building, as many of you know. Several of you have played in my world. And
Waiting for part two, just saying.
I know. The notes are there. I just gotta find the time to run it. So the answer to that is kind of everywhere. That's really vague and it's not helpful the most. But I get a lot of inspiration from the media I consume. So books I read, and like movies and just anything that kind of triggers my imagination like strongly. I'm go, ooh, that's cool. How can I take a version of that and do something with that, because I don't ever want to take something that is not my ideas, but if it's inspiring then absolutely, like, and so basically I sit down and when something comes to me I'll sit down and write a whole bunch all at once. I tend to do kind of that uh stream of consciousness sort of stuff. Like if something is in my head, I gotta write it down before I lose it, basically. And so I'll sit and write a bunch when I get inspired by just any of the things that I consume, because I feel like one of the biggest things with world building and just being a decent creative person in general is reading a lot and using your imagination regularly, because those are the biggest things that can kind of help you keep your muscles flexed or and in shape for doing that sort of thing.
I'm with you, especially on the as far as like the things that you read. I'll admit my version of the Feywild is 100% Dresden Files. I've got my Sealy and Unsealy courts are set up pretty much the same way, and it's great because as soon as I do that, I know which of my players have read the Dresden File, because as soon as I pull out one of the one of the Winter Queens, the just face just drops. You watch and you see the facial expression. It's like, yep, nope, okay, got that. Dresden File fan. I see you.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, before I started using published settings exclusively, I would draw a lot of like historical stuff in kind of doing mashups of like different eras. The Viking era, the Roman era, and figuring out ways that I could make them all work together. Just because that was Western, Western history or European history was a big thing for me. And sometimes I would just go basically set it in a time period, and I would do an alternate Earth because, I mean, especially if you like doing something in the Norse. I mean, you got things like Beowulf and all the different, all the different Norse mythologies, and even then you can do Norse the Celtic mythologies, and other stuff, and put them all together, and you've got right there. Just that alone will give you plenty of material.
Oh yeah. I mean, like there's so much so there's so many stories and just like lore of like I said, existing gaming systems, but also just the history of the world and the history of human storytelling. There's so much good information that can inspire so many things and have has inspired so many things throughout the creation of a lot of tabletop games. And I mean, like, if you even look at like the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien was inspired by a lot of mythology and stories that had existed before. So it's all there, and it's all great sources of inspiration, I think.
All right. Actually, you mentioned, Steve, I know you mentioned Golden Age of Piracy. Yeah, no, there was a time where doing a adventures on the high seas was a thing for me. Not doing nautical stuff. And actually, I think that's kind of why I was so interested when Spelljammer came, because despite the fact that you almost think it has a sci-fi feel to it, no, it actually felt more like a high seas adventure, just happened to be in space because of the way it ran. All right, more questions. Come on, keep going.
We did have one from Thomas a little further back. What
What do you enjoy?
enjoy most about Pathfinder 2e? And I can talk a little bit about that since I've played it quite a bit. I like that with Pathfinder 2e, one of my favorite things about it is the fact that you can basically take one class and make an infinite, almost infinite, I wouldn't say, but like multitude versions of that same class, and it not be the same as any other version. Like, there's so much character flavor in the feats and the ancestries and the just what you can create through what it's established to be. It I think it's just so cool that you can basically, I mean, I've played a sorcerer who was our main healer for our party, in that, because of the way that Pathfinder 2e is structured, you can do that. And yeah, so like, you basically, I could play the same class over and over again and not make the same character twice. And I think that's one of my favorite parts, because as someone who enjoys playing clerics as much as I do, playing the same cleric over and over again would get kind of dull. So being able to go, oh, I'm going to do this kind of cleric this time, and maybe this kind of cleric over here. But also, I feel like it's very accessible as far as like playing. Like, once you kind of figure out how the 3-action economy works in combat, I feel like it's pretty straightforward, and it's really fun. Yeah, I don't know. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I've played in a few one shots, and I've played part of an adventure path, and we're about to start another adventure path very soon. So I'm very excited about that.
I can't wait to. I have the thoughts on my character. This is going to be something very, very different for me. Just in many ways. In some ways, it's going to be right up my alley. In some ways, it's going to be very, very different. But I mean, I looking forward to it, because the Magus, playing the Magus was an interesting, definitely an interesting feel to the character. And it's something I like the idea. I'm be interested in exploring it more, but that is not what I'm going to be doing for this game.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I mean, I've enjoyed playing it. I don't know that I would ever want to run it, only because of the fact that some of it I'm like, I've become very rules light as a GM.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's a lot of stuff, and honestly, I don't have. It's the game. It's the game that 12-year-old me would have dove into, and you wouldn't have seen me for a month, because I would have been like absorbing everything in every
Yeah.
book that they had. I'm right now. I'm like, let me get the rules out of the way. Let just go with more role playing. There is a question. So Mellowblade, I'm not going to go too far with that one. Here's what I'm going to say as far as certain creatures in D&D being evil. I find it boring. I mean, regardless, I don't, because I hate trying to parse what somebody's intentions were and the truth of why they made something the way they made it. It's just, I find the concept of a set of creatures just being flat out evil. Now, now there are some like dragons. I can go with a dragon being a type of dragon being evil. There, but just like orcs, I don't know. I mean, I can find. Well, no, see, you can't go with demons and devils because now you're talking about some place the things that literally come from hell and the abyss, and those are not good places. I mean, you're talking about which of course makes tieflings a little bit problematic, but that's another argument for another day.
Right.
Um, I think Vivi had a question.
Yes. Is there a moment as a DM where you have really seen a strong positive reaction to your game? How did it make you feel as a DM?
Ooh, like a particular strong positive reaction. I mean, I get a lot of positive reinforcement from my Friday night group, so I'm trying to think of another moment where something I don't know, maybe you have one.
I mean, I can think of a very distinct one. So actually, the my one shot that I did, the Divine City one that you played in,
Mm-hmm.
but I was super like not feeling great about that one shot when I like came to it. Like I was like, I'm gonna make this the best it can be, and I hope my players have fun. But I am just so like, I'm not, I'm not necessarily. I was a little worried that you guys weren't gonna enjoy yourselves. And at the end of it, everyone was like, "Yes, what's the next one?" And it was part two, and I was like, "Okay, maybe I was that." So like, I was like, "Okay, maybe I just was a little too hard on myself."
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's part and
the fact
parcel of
that
being a DM.
yeah. But like the fact that you guys still asked me for part two is like, okay, I really need to make that happen.
Talk about reactions. One of the, and it's something I've mentioned before. So, I was running a game. It was actually my current campaign that I'm running, and so the story's been taking place in multiple. There's been acts. They're on the third and final. I think it's the third and final act, or they might even be on act four at this point. It kind of got blurred near the end. But there's something that happened in Act One, and they didn't think much about it at the time. And I knew that I've got one player that is the note taker, so
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had the notes, and there was something that they had found, and they had read, and I gave them the information that was in it, and in the third act, something from Act One got referenced in a big way, and they're like, "That didn't happen." I'm like, "Uh huh, yeah, it did." And sent it to Note, and they're like, "Ah, oh, oh, oh," and just lights went on. Character shredder campaigns like White Plume Mountain. White Plume Mountain is not a character shredder adventure. I mean, it's it I White Plume Mountain is. I actually ran it. It's the only part of my current campaign that was not homebrewed because I needed. Yeah, the exactly, Vivi. That epiphany moment. Tomb of Horrors is not in White Plume Mountain. Tomb of Horrors is a completely different adventure. Tomb of Horrors. Now here's the thing. Tomb of Horrors. If you're a DM and you run Tomb of Horrors in your campaign, the party should have a fair right to throw their dice at you. I'm just saying because you deserve that. That is not meant to be run as. I mean, I know Tomb of Annihilation is, I guess, loosely based on Tomb of Horrors, and it's actually set up as a campaign of sorts. But Tomb of Horrors itself is a tournament. Yeah, exactly, Steve. It's a tournament module. It is literally there to see how far the players can get before their characters die. And they do it for, they'd run it. A DM would run it multiple times, and whoever got, whatever group got the furthest, they might have prizes, or they might just run it once and just, claim to fame how far did you get, because you go to these conventions and people know each other and they see the same people year after year, and it's like, well, how far did you get, and where'd you die, because that's what Tomb of Horror does to you.
Yes.
Is to say, I have the paper shredder here. Yeah, you do not run anybody's OG character through it. Not their, not without a backup. Make sure you have that's the backup of the character sheet.
Yeah, that's your like, okay, this is my normal gameplay of that character, and this is the copy just for this purpose. Call of Cthulhu is cool. I haven't gotten to like play a game, but I've seen it played several times, and it seems like a really fun game to do.
I have yet to get into a Call of Cthulhu game. Now, another game that I want to get into or get into a session of, because it is literally a character shredder, is Alien RPG, where it is basically how long before you die, because you're probably going to die.
You have a 20th level, even an entire binder with one character. Makes sense.
All right. Next, any more questions? Keep them coming.
Yes.
And thank you all for that, because these have been some great questions. I'm really enjoying this.
This is our freeform Q&A LMA.
Let's see. I want to make sure that we didn't. I think we got them all.
I think we did too. I mean, I know Thomas asked like way at the beginning the difference between acting and why are beholders so cute. It's the big eyes. It's the big eyes.
It's got that big mouth too. The big eye, the big eye and the mouth.
Big mouth.
It looks like it's smiling as it petrifies you and zaps you in various different ways, and then I don't know, maybe it eats you. I'm not sure.
Disintegrates you, just right out kills you. We love beholders; they're amazing.
Besides, we have the Beholder Queen as one of our esteemed members, so
exactly.
So that's automatically in their favor.
Yes, 100%. Is it the disintegration ray? Is it the anti-magical eyes? Well, that anti-magic cone is so fun for casters.
Yeah, I ended up playing a cleric in a one-shot with the beholder, and I'm not gonna lie, it was not a lot of fun, because unless you have a party that knows how to handle a beholder, I ended up having a lot of time where I was just not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough.
It's funny, Ella, you mentioned beholders are so horrible that you don't use them in reality. Well, first of all, if beholders exist in reality, we have a separate problem.
Oh gosh, that would be horrifying.
But I know what you meant. It was just funny with the way it read. So I'm going to tell you something. Beholders are not the creature that I would say don't use.
Right.
The creature that you want to be very, very, very careful about deciding to finally use is the mimic.
Oh yeah, because that's like that's your character right there.
And your players will never trust anything they see ever again. As soon as something turns out to be a mimic, your adventurers are going to start crawling until they finally maybe possibly forget about the mimic, because they're going to be terrified of everything.
I mean, put enough traps in a game, they're going to be terrified of everything anyway.
Yeah.
I check for traps. Just make sure that is noted.
Actually, here's a question for you. Okay. When you DM, do you let your players roll their own check for traps, or do you roll for them?
I roll for them.
Okay.
Because if you roll a 1, you're automatically gonna know that you don't know that it's there. If you roll a 20, you're going to automatically know that it's there. So my theory on that is you shouldn't be sure one way or the other. If you have to go with information that your character would assume, because otherwise it's meta knowledge. Mimic sock of holding.
Mimic sock of holding. That sounds terrifying. I'm intrigued and terrified at the same time. Bag of devouring.
This is a bag of devouring.
Oh boy. I've been one of these days. I may get to the point where I roll for them. I kind of like to let them just role play it out if they fail or if they succeed. Mm-hmm. It's like, I give them the confidence. Give them the confidence. Because one thing I don't do is I don't tell them what the challenge. Because they don't. With me, they'll never know what the challenge level is. Mm-hmm. And if they're low enough level, I mean, it could be nat 20 or nothing.
Right. Yeah.
All right. More questions. We've got some time left. Keep them coming. Y'all been so good about this.
We like the questions.
But while we're waiting for questions, we here at Blue Box.
Do we do the thing?
Yeah, we're going to do the thing.
Okay. Well, if you're here and you're liking what you're seeing here at any point, and you haven't followed yet, or if you're a follower and you have not yet subscribed, or if you are a subscriber and you have let your subscription lapse, we have one question for you here at BlueBoxRPG.
What are you doing? Give us a follow, give us a sub, or just keep chatting. We're good either way. Yeah. Actually, we should probably. I mean, granted, I think everyone here has it, but just in case,
join us in our Discord. Mm-hmm. You do that?
Yep.
Yeah, Discord's great. Thanks, Scott. Why do most groups do skill checks wrong?
Okay, Mike, I'm going to need you to kind of elaborate on groups doing skill checks wrong.
I'm unsure.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by groups doing skill checks wrong. Oh, that's all. That'd be awesome of you.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate that.
Let's see. Rules is written for skill checks where 1s are not fumbles and 20s are not crits.
This is true. Well, I mean, I can't speak for others, but I don't know, I don't do critical fumbles or critical successes for skill checks. Rolls a natural 118 on his prior. Steve. So for me, I mean, one of the nice things about, or here's what I do with skill checks, honestly. I don't like, unless it's a physical thing, and even sometimes not even a physical thing, I rarely do a binary, well, yeah, because a nat 20 is automatically going to, would find any traps, because if I'm putting a trap in that is absolutely impossible for somebody who's able to find traps to find on a nat 20, that's probably on me. I mean, unless they went into the high level place where they were never supposed to go in the first place, in which case, yeah, that's a different thing. But for the most part, usually a nat 20 is going to be able to find it. But I'm not the biggest on a lot of skill checks for binary yes or no. Now finding traps is one thing, but things like, some kind of knowledge checks or whatever it is, there's a certain level of information I'm going to assume that they should have. And then there's the question of, well, do I take a little bit off that? Do I add a little onto that? Do I add a lot onto that? And, depending on where they are in relation to the DC I've set for the check, and what they roll and what their modifiers and everything, I'll give a better idea. I'll give them more or less information. And there are maybe times where they don't know anything, and it's because it's something that they're just trying to pull out of, rabbit out of a hat. So there may be nothing for them to know. But if there's some base of knowledge that I think is reasonable that they would have anyway, I'm not going to make them roll just to have that bit of knowledge, because that just seems punitive. I'm not one for rolling skill checks on everything either.
Yeah.
If I know you're supposed to know, I'm not going to have you roll it.
I mean, especially if it makes sense for their character, like their backstory, or just something that that they have learned at this point. Like, why make them roll for it again? When it's something that you can give them. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I don't feel like everything needs to be rolled for necessarily.
The best way to find the trap is to march the fighter in front of you with the crossbow to his back. My party, the Friday Night Group, gets a little more creative than that. They throw goblin and other corpses at things and see if anything triggers.
You just carry around a cart of goblin corpses.
They've paused to go back to other rooms to go get corpses to. They found a thing where there was a blade. They realized that there was blades that could potentially come down, and they put they put a thing down so that the corpse could absorb the blow instead of the player. Mm-hmm. All the corpses across the squares. Yeah, there was a checkerboard room where you had to be certain alignments to step on certain certain squares. So their way of going through it was they dragged all the corpses from the previous room and basically just stepped on them to get to where they wanted to be.
I guess that's one way of doing it. Zombies are good for that too. I imagine so, yes.
Garn tripped over one. Pig Nose just basically decided to walk through all of them to see what they did. That was fun.
I actually intentionally walked through a trap as Irda once, just to set it off because I knew I could probably take the damage of it.
Oh man. All right. More questions. I think we have time for one or two more.
Yep.
Make it a good one.
And rolling is fun. I am definitely not ever going to do away with rolling. It's just things I feel like that don't need to be rolled for. There's always plenty of rolling in my game, so.
And Mike, you mentioned that some players fish for 20s to get what they want. True, but something, if it's actually that's one of the things I like about Castles and Crusades is you have if it's an ability that a class should have and they're not of that class, they don't get to add their level on, so they're never going to get any better. And if they get that 5% chance to roll that nat 20, good on them. All right. Need that. So if I keep a little green slime in a vial to poison people, is that evil? Well, I think it's probably evil the second that you use the poison to poison someone.
Yes, that is an evil act for sure.
Remember, we didn't have dice. We just
grunted and clacked rocks. I mean, as long as it makes the same nice click clack sound, we approve.
I need the click clack. There must be click clack sounds. All right. So one more question. Come on. There's got to be a question here somewhere. Next.
That's a valid point. Yes. Any other questions for our lovely freeform Q&A this evening? I mean, I can answer Thomas's question from earlier about acting versus why no Hawaiian shirt.
All my Hawaiian shirts are currently in the wash because I'm going on vacation in a little over a week and I'm going to be wearing them there. No, it's not in Hawaii, but it will be tropical.
I don't own one. uh, no, not going to Worldcon.
How many pieces of pizza have you consumed playing D&D?
Do you
Oh
mean
my
overall or in one setting?
Moose, oh. So, one of the things that's popular around here, I mean, yeah, I do have a Gary Con shirt on. Yep. Which suddenly makes Miller's question regarding Worldcon a lot. I'm suddenly trying to figure out where that came from. It's like, yeah, I forgot that I put my Gary Con t-shirt on. I will not be going to Worldcon. The next con I probably will go to this year. Well, in person, the next definite one is PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia in December.
Mm-hmm.
I may be going to um, MEPA, which I believe it's in Pennsylvania, because that one's not too far from me. That I believe is in September. So with regards to how many pieces of pizza, funny story. I mentioned that we had, I had a couple friends in high school, and we'd go to one's house every so often. And I love New York style pizza. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's my favorite pizza in the world. Very close to second is Sicilian, Sicilian style pizza, which is, it. We had my friends from high school were also very big into it, and there were there was the three of us there for the weekend playing D&D, and his parents had guests over, and um, if you've never seen Sicilian pie, it's kind of sort of like a not a deep dish, but kind of like a pan pizza,
Mm-hmm.
in but a large, think large rectangle. She had ordered pizzas for the party, and the started off ordering uh ordering like six pizzas for the entire party, and she's like, don't you think we're just gonna need about what do you call it, two or three? She's like,
Mm-hmm.
she points to the three of us, she's like, two of them are going to be for those two, those three, because it was just gonna go. We devoured pizza like it was going out of style.
Um, in one setting during a D&D game, in one night I have eaten an entire large pizza by myself. Overall,
Guilty.
I have no idea how much pizza I have consumed in my time of playing D&D. Probably way too much, but I love pizza, so there is that.
The only thing that saved me, I mean, because being in Hoboken for college, we had some of the best pizza you'll ever. You like New York style pizza? It's the best pizza. I'll put it up with anywhere. I don't care. But they also had a lot of other different options. So the one thing that saved us from eating pizza all the time, besides being poor college students, was the fact that there's really good Chinese food. There was really
Mm-hmm.
good. We could get really good chicken and wings and chicken pieces, and it was there's so much there. All right, so yeah, okay. I guess that counts as a D&D question.
Totally,
Not where I
it's
thought we were going with
D&D
this.
adjacent.
Uh, so
What's
yeah, I guess at this point we will get ready to raid Lord Kazumba
Yay? Yeah,
if it will let me.
I can. I got it on my side. Raid. So yeah. Thank you all for joining us tonight for our little bit of just chilling, talking to the chat, LMA. Yeah, we'll be back Sunday with more Rune Lords, I believe, unless I hear otherwise. And we'll have GHA and LME next week. So we're gonna go over and say hi to Jay. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Bye now.
Bye, folks. And rated.